Hi everyone, today we'll be going through the Ephemeris, practical tool that every astrologer has. It's probably one of the first books that you will purchase as a beginning astrologer, or if you're just astro-curious embarking on the quest to understand astrology a little bit more. This video will help you understand what you're looking at a little bit more. Years ago, when I began my astrological journey, one of the things in the recommended books was get an Ephemeris. You must have an Ephemeris. Ephemeris is one of those must-have books. So, one of my first 5 books, I bought 5 books together, and one of them was the Ephemeris. And I looked at the Ephemeris, and I was overwhelmed. I'm like, what am I looking at? Just open up a page and it's trying to understand this and exactly what it means. I just closed the book, put it back on the shelf, and I was like, eventually I'll understand what I'm looking at, but right now trying to even make sense of it, and I consider myself a fairly intelligent person, I just couldn't make sense of it. So let's break this down and go through it to help you understand a little bit more of what you're looking at and how to decipher exactly what's being displayed to you page to page. So, first off, one thing that you need to know about is that there are different ephemerises out there. They cover different times. So one is a table of the planetary positions at noon or at midnight. Those tend to be the 2 defining dates, and they're for within a certain time zone as well. Now, which is the universal time zone. Now, the other thing is that they cover different ranges. So the one that I have, for example, is right here at midnight, and this book here, thick enough as it is, covers from the year 2000 to 2100. So from month to month, they have every planetary positions at any given year, any given month, any given day at midnight. So this is where the planets would be located to help you decipher and understand exactly what's going on. Now, you don't have to purchase a book. You can get it free online if you go to astro.com, and I'll switch to this video right now so to help you navigate that. So you go to astro.com, you click on the tab over here, all about astrology, and then you'll see that there's different ephemeris guides that are there for different centuries, really. And there you can either print them off or just keep going back to them for reference. Now, under this section, you'll see that there's the 2 most recent ones, years in question, 2023 and 2024. But there's also 9,000 year ephemeris here. Now, if you click on that, you'll see the different centuries that are available online, as well as the most recent ones. Now, this section here, you'll see in the book, I'll be addressing these tables, and those are available there, which you won't find from page to page under these books. If you click on one of these tabs, you'll see the different years within that century, and within that century, the different months available, and that you want to zone in on. All right, so to understand the ephemeris, first and foremost, as you look at the top of the book, you'll notice a series of glyphs. And it's important to understand what these glyphs mean. Now, one thing that some of you may be aware of is that I've created an award-winning deck, and that's the reason why I've created them this way, is that there's just the glyph here because they serve not only as an information card, but a memory flash card. So from here, we have the different planets, so you can memorize and, test your knowledge what glyphs is. And of course, there's, if you know your planets and how they look like, it's kind of like a key indicator on how that'll help you out, right? And same goes for the zodiac signs. Each and every one of them there. So once you understand your basis for the glyphs, then you can understand what you're looking at and which planetary body is covering which ground. Now, let's go back to the page. So, at the top, obviously we start off with the sun, the moon, and then we have the node. We have Mercury all the way up into Pluto. So these are the planetary positions, in this case, in this example, for July 2023. The first column shows the dates. So today, for example, we are July 15, and here we have the node at 0 degrees in Taurus. So we all know, and we're all anticipating, that nodal shift here into Aries. So if we scroll down a little more, we'll notice here on July 18, you'll see that the North Node will have ingressed into a different zodiac sign. Here it shows 29 degrees, 53 minutes, and 6 seconds. Now, keep in mind, the nodes move backwards, so they backtrack every sign. So they move clockwise within the zodiac chart, the birth chart, so which is in a retrograde motion. So they move backwards. So they go from 29 down to 0. Every other planet, obviously, from 0 to 30 to 29. Now, whenever a planet or point, such as the North Node, ingresses into another sign, you'll always see the glyph of the zodiac sign beside the degree that is located there. So, for example, let's move back up. July 11th. This is when Mars will move into Virgo. Well, it has moved into Virgo, given it's July 13th today. So 2 days ago, it moved into the sign of Virgo. So here, this is where the glyph of Virgo is right beside the degree point that it's at. And that'll be the case for every other sign. Now, when we're looking at the table itself, the very top line, so if we look at July 1st at the very top, it will always remind you exactly of what zodiac sign, the month, this planet has started in. So, if we look at the sun started off July at 8 degrees in the sign of Cancer, 56 minutes. Same for the moon, 5 degrees Sagittarius, Mercury, 8 degrees Cancer, Venus, 20 degrees Leo, Mars, 24 degrees Leo, and then we're just going to skip over. We're going to go to Jupiter, 9 degrees Taurus, because we're just going to keep things basic for now. We're also going to be seeing Saturn at 7 degrees Pisces. Now, notice that it's highlighted. It's dark because that's the ongoing continuation of the retrograde period. Neptune is currently still in retrograde period. That is highlighted as well. And Pisces is still, Pluto's is still in retrograde motion as well. So we have Saturn, 7 degrees Pisces, Uranus, which is direct, that's the reason why it's white columned, 21 degrees Taurus, and we have Neptune, 27 degrees Pisces, and Pluto, 29 degrees Capricorn. Now, being July, we're looking at into the upcoming, planetary shifts and retrograde seasons coming up during the summers. This is a perfect month, to be looking at the different varieties of, planetary ingresses. So let's go back to the page. So if we look at the column of Mercury, for example, yes, it started at 8 degrees Cancer. So if we look further down, yesterday, July 12th, Mercury was at 1 degree, 36 minutes. And then if we go further down, even more, July 29, Mercury will be at 0 degrees Virgo. So we see that there's going to be 2 planetary ingresses for Mercury in the month of July 2023. And if we look at Venus, we know we're anticipating, we're currently in retrograde season right now, given the pre-shadow period. But the time that it actually goes direct is July 23, where we'll see it's at 28 degrees and 36 minutes. And then you'll see there's the big R right beside it. That's to indicate the retrograde motion. If we look across, we'll see that the retrograde motion covers a period which makes it easy to look at first glance, to scan by. So if we look at the Venus column right down here, we'll see it's all shaded in gray to show the ongoing retrograde season into August. And then if we look into September, September starts the date at 18 degrees Leo, and then it goes on to September 3rd. So 3rd is the last day of the retrograde season, and then the 4th we see the D. So that's when it is in direct motion. And then from there on, it's shaded white. Now, if we look right beside, we see there's an overlap of another personal planet, Mercury. So and this is what's great about the shaded areas, because it, at quick glance, if we go back to August, we can see where there's that overlap, where Mercury starts its retrograde period on the 23rd of August, and then it goes all the way up until the 14th of September, and it goes direct the 15th of September. So we can see where that overlap happens, and where, you know, things might be just a little bit more challenging for each and every one of us in certain areas of our lives. But that being said, the gray areas or shaded areas, we don't tend to pay too attention to the North Node, which obviously affects the South Node as well. Yes, we see the retrograde motions. It's the reason why it's called the true node, because it takes in consideration the wobble of the moon. And that's the reason why there's that slight retrograde direct motion versus the mean node. It averages that all out. And a mean node wouldn't have a retrograde or direct motion whatsoever. So now let's take a look at the bottom of the pages here. Here we tend to get a summary. The first column we have, the astro data, the days, hours and minutes. We have the planet ingresses, days, hours and minutes. The last aspect, and then the ingress, the last aspect and the ingresses, and the phases and the eclipses. And then again, at the last story, here's what I was talking about, when it came to the main node. I personally don't follow the main node. I prefer the true node, and it definitely reflects into exactly what what's reflected within the news. So that's my preference, and that's what I found that's worked time and time again. Okay, so the astro data section here, this table here, provides 3 types of information. So we have the stations, which are indicated by obviously the planetary glyph here, and it's followed by D or an R. So for example, like if we look here on July, it says we see that Venus is in retrograde, so we have the R for the retrograde here. And if we look to the other side here on September 2023, we see that we have Venus direct, but here we also have Jupiter retrograde, Mercury direct. Now, what they also do is it shows the planets at their 0 or celestial bodies at 0 degrees declination. And this is another term that I'll get into another video, but it basically just tells you where it is and it involves, the term that you hear, out of bounds in astrology. So it tells you where it is in its area of declination. Some planets go out of bounds. The sun never goes out of bounds, so it goes up into 23.5 degrees up from the point of the equator. This pretty much indicates where things are at in relationship to the equator. So it's 0 degrees declination or not, and it tells you when at that point. So the moon would be most prominent when it comes to that. So, for example, at the top we have the moon, so we have the 0 there, and the direction that it's heading, north or south. So it heads north, and then down here we have the moon at 0 degrees south. So the direction that it's heading more towards south. So if we go further down the column, again, the moon 0 degrees north. The table next to it is the planetary ingresses for this month. It tells you exactly when these ingresses occur. So for example, if we look at the first one here, we have Mars, and the sign that it's ingressing to is Virgo, and the days at is the 10th, the hours 11 o'clock 40 minutes. So if we look at the table here, and then we go on to the 10th. So now keep in mind, this is how you read this, so you're not confused. On the 10th itself, midnight, which is the 10th, we have it at 29:42.3. So 29 degrees, 42 minutes, and 3 seconds. So if we look below, we have the 11th, 18 minutes, 0.7. So at this moment of time where it's at 29 degrees and 42 minutes and 3 seconds, that's the snapshot at that particular time, at that exact moment. But Mars is constantly moving. So if we look at the bottom here, it tells you exactly when it moved into the sign of Virgo, what time on that day, at what moment in that day did it ingress into a different sign. So that's how it's done. And then we have Mercury, the ingress into Leo. And so it's very much a summary of everything that's listed up in here when it comes to the summary of ingresses and what's switching into what that particular month, such as the Sun and Mars again into the sign of Libra. So that's how it explains. Now, if you see, if you notice, there's a space here between the first and last. So that just goes to show the top section here is for the month of July. The bottom is for the month of August. These next two tables, this has everything to do with the void of course moon. So the void period, it starts with the last major aspect to the moon, where and it gives the day, the hour, and the minute, and it ends where the moon it enters the next sign by indicating the glyph, as well as the the day, hour, and minute of when it entered or ingressed into that sign. The void period, sometimes what it does, it can happen where it starts in the previous month and it ends into the other one. So if we look at here, we see all the major aspects that it's made, like for the square, we obviously have a square. Here, the Pluto conjunction, and we have the opposition, the sextile, the square. So this just gives a summary of what aspects the moon made to which ones. And if you notice, you see the glyph of Pluto a lot. And why is that? Well, Pluto's at the last degrees of a sign. So the last aspect, the last major aspect that it's going to make before it ingresses into any other sign is that with Pluto. And so whenever we have stuff that's happening like this, it tends to go, and there's a lot of data, because obviously with Pluto being at the very end of a sign, it tends to get moved over to the next table here. So these two tables side by side here are the last major aspects the moon made before it ingressed into another sign. Now, the table that we have next to it is the moon phases and the eclipses. So again, this will obviously carry the date, hour, and minute, and the position within the zodiac the moon is for each and every one of them. So we'll have the new moon indicated here by a dark circle, obviously because the light of the sun is being blocked as it merges with the sun, so it's hidden. Whereas when the moon is in full opposition to the sun, we have the circle here indicated in white because it's reflecting the sun and it's fully illuminated. We have the first quarter moon, which is the half moon towards the right, and the one veer towards the left is obviously the third quarter moon. But then we have some extra symbols. Now, this is where an eclipse symbol will be following a phase symbol, which means that an eclipse occurs on that day of, that lunar phase. The time and the type of eclipse will be shown in the line below the moon phase. If you see here, you'll have the opposition, which is the glyph of an opposition. So two circles joined together by a line. And what this does is it indicates it's a lunar eclipse. Now, there's 3 types of lunar eclipses, and how they're indicated is with an A, with a P, or with a T. So A is in a pulse, and what that is the prenumbral eclipse where the moon enters only in the penumbra of the Earth. A P, it's a partial eclipse where the moon enters the umbra without being totally immersed in it. So then we have the T, which is a total eclipse where the moon is entirely immersed within the umbra. So that it just contributes to the power and the magnitude of the eclipse. And the same goes for the solar eclipse. Now, the solar eclipse has the circle with the line, and this is it's also indicated, and it looks like the conjunction symbol when it comes to the aspects. Again, this is the indication of a solar eclipse, and there's 6 types of eclipses. So there's going to be obviously one with the P, the partial eclipse. That's where the moon doesn't completely cover the solar disk. We have the T, which is the total eclipse, where the moon completely covers the solar disk, and it's seen from the path on the Earth's surface, which makes a shadow. And A is an annular eclipse, which is it's a total, but the moon is too far from the Earth, so that the shadow, because the distance in the relationship from the moon to this within the distance of the sun and the Earth, so it's too far from the Earth's point to be able to cast a shadow onto the Earth. So it is a total eclipse, but we just don't experience that shadow on the Earth. The last section, which is the last data, the last table here where you see the astro data. So how it starts out is that you'll see this Julian day number, it is different for everyone. Now, what that is just basically the count of the number of days that has gone on since December 31, 1899 at Greenwich noon. On January 1, 1900 is Julian day number 1. Below that, you'll see SVP. Now, that's the synodic vernal point. That's where you may have heard, for example, Regulus, every 71 and a half years, there's that precession. So that's what that's all about. So the GC is the galactic center. And basically what that is the monthly position of the galactic center is given using the longitude of Sagittarius. Why that's important is because it basically, that position can differ somewhat from prior editions of the Ephemeris, because that information tends to get more and more inaccurate each and every day, again, because of the synodic vernal point and the precessions and the equinoxes. So right now that's at 28 degrees, 26, what is it at? Yeah, so which right now is at 27 degrees Sagittarius. We have obviously the monthly position of Aries and Chiron, as well as Pallas, Vesta, and Juno. And these are the asteroids. As you get more proficient in astrology, you tend to use those and in the way you interpret charts, and use them in the explanations of translating astrological information and data. My best advice is keep things simple, master the basics, understand the language of each and every planet as they communicate with another planet. That's my best advice when it comes to being things before you start adding the asteroid and making things way too complicated. What makes a proficient and expert astrologer is to have a good solid foundation at the basics, knowing them well, knowing how a planet functions in a sign and within a house. But having said that, let's get back to exactly, what this is all about. So yes, the astrological data does include the positions of the asteroids. Eventually, you'll want to incorporate that into your practice. That's what that information is for. As you look at the tables at the bottom, you'll see there's a direct correlation to where they're at in the tables up above. So, with that being said, I hope the data here, the information here presented within this video helps you understand and navigate an ephemeris a lot better. I know for myself, I was very much overwhelmed of how to understand exactly what's being conveyed to me through these pages. And it wasn't till I started taking classes, webinar here and there, starting out with a webinar here and there, and then obviously moving into an astro school setting. And from there, I thoroughly understood how planets were moving, were functioning, the ingresses, and the like. Then that's when I took my ephemeris off the shelf and start looking at it with a much greater understanding, figuring out exactly how the tables worked and stuff like that. So good luck on your astrological journey. I hope this helps. Grab that ephemeris, look at it as you watch an astrological video of horoscopes from your favorite astrologer, any given astrologer. Take a look at what a fun exercise to do is that as they start to talk about different planetary positions, and especially Mercury or even the sun, the sun, even the moon, the full moon, the new moon, look at those tables at the bottom. Like, start putting quote unquote words in their mouth as they're talking. Say it before they say it. That was a really great practice for me. So, for example, the month of July, having two different planetary ingresses going in 2 different months. So these were like, and the astrologer who's presenting within the video will say, well, on such and such date, we'll have Mercury moving into the sign of, and then you're like, Leo, or before they even say what they're about to say, you say, hey, I'm expecting them to say, Mercury's going to be moving into this sign, Mercury's going to be moving into that sign. They're going to talk about especially they're going to be talking about the full and new moon, and make those notes. And and it's a good way to test yourself, seeing if you're reading it perfectly. And that's basically my advice to you. And you're going to get more proficient and develop a more sense of confidence as you start to understand astrology, understand how to read the ephemeris, and most importantly, what's information is being conveyed to you through astrology videos on the internet, whether the platform be YouTube or Vimeo or whatnot. So hope this was of help to you, and good luck on your journey. And of course, if you want to visit my website at www.co-creatingtoday, there I have some products in production that'll be posted on the website soon, but there's some cheat sheets for you, some reference sheets, planets, houses, and signs that could be of use to you, as well as, of course, the award-winning deck, Astrology Fundamentals, which is a great educational tool to help you along your astrological journey. So thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget, if you feel compelled to, please consider subscribing below. It would be great help to the channel and to the work that I'm going to be presenting to you over the coming weeks and months. So have yourself a great day. Stay tuned for more astrological educational videos.